When you get old, you remember things of the past. And this model helps us to remember. It is a crane that was first introduced in 1969, and it's the Manitowoc 4100W crawler crane. And this model is in the colours of the US company J.E. McAmis. This model is made by Weiss brothers, and it was originally released as a first version by TWH Collectibles in 2008. Inside the box there's some paperwork we'll look at shortly, and when we cut the tape and lift the lid we see the parts are nicely wrapped. There's some packaging to remove before we start, and the crawler tracks have a shrink wrapping to protect them during shipping. It's tight and really the only way to remove it is to cut it off, but of course that does mean it's not really possible to fit it back on if you wanted to repack and ship the model. The luffing ropes are reeved in the factory and tape is used to keep them together. It's best not to cut the tape, instead it's better to carefully unwrap it. And on the review model there was still some work to do to put the rope back onto a couple of the pulleys. Included with the model is a simple black and white instruction manual, and it includes a parts list and photos showing the main assembly. It's okay, but it doesn't show every feature or possibility on the model. But it's good enough that most collectors won't have any problem assembling the model in its designed configuration. So that's the assembly manual, and also included with the model is a numbered collector card. And this model is number 42 out of 200 models.
If you are interested in buying this model, look in the video description below this video and click the link.
For the assembly we start by adding ballast boxes between the track frames, and they are an easy fit and just hook on. Next we move on to the counterweight, and this comes as separate segments, and they have a push fit connection which works well. We then have two additional pieces, and these just hook over, one on each side. With that done we have the full counterweight assembled, and we can move on to fitting it at the back of the crane. To do that we first need to raise the gantry with the luffing ropes on it. So using the supplied key we let out some rope and lift the gantry up. With that done we can add the counterweight block. And as you can see there are two holes which the counterweight block plugs into. It is an unusual connection, but actually it does work well. And it is secure enough. Next we've screwed all of the boom parts together, and the pendant lines are pre-assembled to the boom top. But one issue on the review model is that there's not enough rope on the luffing drums for the bridle to connect to the pendants when the boom is down. So we have to make the connection with the boom up in the air, and to make it easy it's best to put the screw into the connector part way, and then it's easier to fit it to the luffing bridle and fully screw in to make the connection. The last job to do for the assembly is to add on the hook blocks. And to do that we need to take rope off of the winch drums. There are two blocks. The single line block should be run from the rear drum, and the main block should be run from the front drum. We start by looking underneath, and the metal tracks are nicely detailed, and at the centre of the undercarriage is a plastic cover plate. The support beams to the track frames are modelled, and there's some detail under the crane itself. If you undo the black screws you can get inside the body. A particularly nice piece of modelling is the exposed chain drive, and there's plenty of other detailing in the track frames. The ballast boxes have got textured steps which rise up to a textured platform, and there's a highly detailed warning graphic. The cab on this old-timer looks great with its grab rails, and the windows have got highlighted seals. The door handle is modelled and there's a nice 4100W graphic. The model is attractive in the McAmis colour scheme, and there's a logo behind the metal ladder. There's also an excellent slatted grille and more sharp warning graphics. There's an exhaust on the roof. At the back is the large McAmis logo, and there's also one on the door on the opposite side. There are access holes in the side of the body for the winch key, and looking at the front there are some visible hinges on an opening door. But the standard of detailing is very high, and here's another warning graphic, and you can see the rivet details also. The gantry is another detailed all-metal part, and maybe the silver rivets would have been better with a spot of paint. There are also step irons to provide access up to the gantry, and they seem to have a life of their own. The boom sections on the model are really good. They are fully detailed and they have internal metal bracing, so overall they are very realistic. The main chords of the boom sections are also modelled as angle girders, and not just simple castings. The pendant connections are very nice, and a good job has been done to make sure all of the pendants are of equal length and therefore tension. Even the boom top has internal bracing, and the Manitowoc signs are metal. The boom head is realistically detailed with connections for a fly jib, and there's a full bank of metal pulleys. The single line hook block is a nice metal part, and the main block is also metal, and it has 4 sheaves. We start with the crane resting on some rough terrain, and that means the crawler tracks can bite and then they roll well. What's particularly pleasing is having a look at the chain drive, and you can see that that's fully operational and it works very well. At the front the cab has a very nice sliding door, and the crane rotates smoothly and precisely. And it's nice to get a good look at the detail inside the cab. Let's go back behind the cab, and there's a tiny opening flap, and this gives access to the battery compartment. On the opposite side of the crane there's another nice sliding door, and that lets you see detail of the modelled plastic engine. At the front of the crane there's yet another opening door, and as if that still wasn't enough, there's an opening flap on the roof of the crane. Moving to the main crane operations, and as we've seen, the boom angle can be adjusted, and the luffing winch has a positive spring-loaded winch, so it holds an angle without much problem. Similarly, the main hoisting winches also have brakes, and they also work well to be able to hold a load. And of course all this functionality allows you to be a crane operator. Let's take a quick look and see how big the model is by doing a dim check. And depending on the boom angle you can get to 26 inches or 66 centimeters or more. Another undocumented feature on the model is that the track frame positions are adjustable. Out of the box they're set wide, but if you undo the screws you can move them into a narrower position. Or you can go the whole way and remove the screws completely, and that allows you to fully detach the crawler track frame. So this gives you the chance to display the model in transport mode. And to do that out of the box you also need to detach the small boom section that's on the end of the boom foot. The red Manitowoc screwdriver is supplied with the model, and when all 4 screws are removed you can detach the boom section. So here we have the crane now in a lightweight transport configuration, and we'll put it onto a lowboy, and the US experts watching on this video can comment whether this is being done right or not. As another option you can transport the crane with its tracks in the retracted position, but this gives you a heavier load and also a much wider one. But again it can be transported this way. The other advantage of the model is that if you have a suitable fleet of trucks, you can set up a whole convoy. It's great to see the re-release of the Manitowoc 4100W, and Weiss brothers have done well to release it in different colour schemes. This one is attractive in McAmis colours, and the model is a great combination of detail and functionality. So if you want an old-timer crane model, it is excellent.